So we know Robert Lewandowski will be leaving Barcelona come the end of the season. And listen, word to Lewandowski, like absolutely phenomenal player, one of the best strikers of his generation. And I'm trying to figure out where I put him because I'm trying to figure out what era am I putting you in? What other players? Obviously, got the Suarez's of this kind of world as well. Harry Kane, obviously, he's now into this kind of era. So do I put him in the old era? Do I put him in the kind of new era? He was still there when the likes of Ronaldo was still about. Messi was still at Barcelona. He's been about since been about. Did you get what I'm trying to say? Like he has scored so many goals. Look, 344 goals in 375 appearances for Bayern Munich. Then came to Barcelona, where most people were not feeling it, and that's I want to say interesting, but I guess people just kind of looked at it and thought, you know what? He's kind of past his best now. There's a reason why Bayern Munich are obviously letting him go. So clearly, it is what it is kind of thing. But he's gone to Barcelona. He's won, I think, 2 out of 3 La Liga titles since being there. 119 goals and 192 appearances. And this is off the back of Borussia Dortmund, over 100 goals in 108. Like, come on. This guy is absolutely lethal. Every single club, if you look at the numbers, guys, the numbers for him at all of the clubs that he's played for, whether it be in Poland, whether it be in Spain, whether it be in Germany, he has constantly scored goals. So for him to leave, first and foremost, big up to you, because there was the debate about, is he a bigger legend than Neymar? I think so. I would think so. I believe that he's contributed. It's hard to say like more, because obviously Neymar was in the era with Lionel Messi. So unfortunately for you, you're always going to be kind of second fiddle. Whereas I believe that with someone like Lewandowski, I think everything's contextual, right? So even if you don't want to say he's contributed more or you think he's the bigger legend, what I can say is that he's a legend in his own right without having to really compare the two. Because he came during a time when Barcelona were, we looked like we were slipping like down a slippery road, like a real slippery road. We didn't know. I didn't know. I was thinking, eesh, are Barca going back to, when I say even back in the day, I'm talking, like real peak times, essentially. Real peak times. We were coming off the back of, once Lionel Messi left, now you just had just shit players, in my personal opinion. Barcelona were just all over the gap. Things just wasn't popping. It was horrible, man. It was horrible, and I didn't really like it. So I didn't really know where Barcelona were kind of at. But he came there as kind of like the big bro, as kind of like, guys, listen, I'm going to almost come here, use my experience in order to try and help the team in any which way. And you can't say that he hasn't. You really can't say that he hasn't. 37 years of age, and this guy is still scoring goals. All I'm saying is I would sign him. I'm not signing him to be my main number 9, obviously depending on the team, but I would be signing him to be like, yeah, what, come off the bench. Or even you don't feel like he can play like a few games, like here and there. Bro, with that kind of goal scoring instinct, just a season. I just need, even for the leadership qualities, I would be signing someone like Robert Lewandowski, man. But listen, absolutely phenomenal player. He's won so many things throughout his career. He's just like, honestly, he's gonna go up there as one of the best strikers, that we've ever seen in football. I don't care what no one says, man. There's not many, in my personal opinion, who are better than Robert Lewandowski. But listen, ultimately, Barcelona do need to replace him. They do need to think of a way that they can kind of replace Lewandowski, right? And I was looking, and I've tried to look more at the players that's been kind of linked with Barcelona, and some that kind of fans want. And I've got a player that I think, in terms of replacing him, I feel that maybe Barcelona should do. But you guys let me know in the comment section what you kind of think about that. But what is it you're kind of replacing with him? Well, I feel like with Lewandowski, obviously, when he came there, we're not talking about, I mean, he was never really like a spring chicken anyway, but what he was just a pure natural goal scorer. He really did have that instinct. He's someone who can hold up play. He can someone who can bring others into the game kind of thing. And in and around the box, he's absolutely fire. Now, obviously, under Hansi Flick, he's been a bit more isolated, in my personal opinion, in terms of, yes, he still gets the service from a Lamine Yamal or Rafinha or Rashford, obviously, this season, or even the Fermin Lopez and whoever else, right? He gets the service, but he does go long parts of a game where he just looks absolutely out of it. Like he's not involved, he's not doing anything, kind of thing, and he's just there. But then again, he pops up with a goal. Now, that might just be more just due to his age and the mobility and stuff like that, right? But I do think that Barcelona do maybe need a striker who can get a little bit more involved, just a little bit more. Do you get what I'm saying? I'm not saying it needs to be Firmino levels, like you're running around like a madman. I don't even feel like it's even that. Yeah, I mean that would be great if you got like a Firmino per work rate, but then someone who could bag goals, and maybe there might be a striker on this list that we can look at. But yeah, I just think that that's maybe the direction they're going to be potentially kind of heading in, and I feel like it just needs to be a bit more fluid. Someone who can maybe interact with the game well, but still has the goal scoring instincts. Can they hold up play? Are they someone who can run in behind potentially? Maybe just stretch the game a little bit more for Barcelona. But we'll kind of wait and see. Yeah, do you know what I mean on that? Obviously, Barcelona's main number one target is Julian Alvarez. I think most people know that. Absolutely phenomenal attacker, striker, if you want to call him that. But I'll call him a forward. I'll call him a forward because he can play in multiple kind of positions. I mean, you can see here, obviously, his style of play. He likes to shoot from distance. He plays the ball off the ground often. Likes to do layoffs. Likes to play long balls. He likes to tackle. Like he's probably the best and it's crazy because he's 26. I don't feel like he's 26. Maybe he's not 26. I don't feel like he's 26, but who knows? I feel like with someone like Julian Alvarez, I think you are getting kind of what I'm asking for. Someone who can get a lot more involved with the play. Someone who is comfortable taking the ball under pressure. Someone who can, of course, run in behind. He has got that pace, but he can also drift. He can also drift out wide if you need him to. He can drop into the hole if you also need him to as well. I'm not going to say he's the strongest or anything like that, but he is someone who does, I feel, get a lot more involved in play, but can also do the isolation thing. Something I've seen him do at Atletico Madrid as well. Where you can leave him isolated and he's not cold. And what I mean by not cold is that, when you leave a striker for too long, when they do get their chances, it just becomes non-existent. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying you need to be Haaland level where he don't need to touch the ball for 89 minutes and can just score. No, I'm more talking like at least look like you're going to be lively when the ball does come near you and stuff like that. I've seen him do that, Atletico Madrid kind of thing. And of course, obviously, he's played under Pep Guardiola as well. So that understanding, that fluidity, I feel like he could bring that, to a team like Barcelona. Whether they would be able to afford him, obviously, it says I put price tags. These are just like the transfer market value. So don't take it as literal. But I mean, he's going to cost you over about 100 million pounds, kind of thing. So whether Barca could do that, I don't think so. I mean, they would have to sell about 4 or 5 players, which I think is an unrealistic option unless they've got money that we just didn't know about. But honestly, I feel like he would be the number one pick if they could obviously pick a striker, but he'd also be the number one pick for a lot of teams anyway. So good striker, I think definitely a fit in my personal opinion, but whether they can get him, I don't really know. We'd have to kind of wait and see. The next striker that they've obviously been looking at is Joao Pedro. Now, this one's an interesting one. I like Joao Pedro. I think he's a really, really good player. Wanted him last season. Obviously, Liverpool went out to go and then sign Ekitike and Isak, but I still would have wanted him. I wouldn't really have minded which one you would have said no to in terms of Ekitike or probably Ekitike at the time. Let me not lie. I still actually think he's maybe a little bit better than Ekitike. I think he's a more clinical finisher than an Ekitike. I feel that I trust him a little bit more. But in terms of for Barcelona in itself, I think, again, I'm not going to say that he's someone who he gets involved. He definitely gets involved. You can see with his goals this season, 20 goals, 49 games. Like he is someone who can get involved. I don't feel like it's as much as an Alvarez. Again, that might just be system playing under, Liam Rossinha. Who signed him? I think it was Maresca who signed him. So yeah, it's one of those, but he is, as you can see there, aerial duels, finishing through balls, key passes. He's a player who does get fouled often. He likes to do layoffs. He likes to dribble. He can get involved, and I feel like he can link up with. I'm mainly looking at like a Lamine Yamal because he's kind of like, he's gonna, I feel, propel and take this team forward, or put the team on his back, right? So I feel that link-up play and also the link-up play with the midfielders, whether it be a Fermin Lopez or Dani Olmo playing in behind, I feel like Joao Pedro can really, play to his own strengths, within that. And I do think he's comfortable enough in front of goal to be able to put the ball in the back of the net. And I think that's going to be something that Barcelona mainly need to be looking for. Can this player consistently put the ball in the back of the net? And I feel like with these first 2 names, I do feel like they can both do that. I really do feel like they can do that. And I think Joao Pedro, listen, again, price tag, the transfer market value is 75 million euros. But again, I feel like that's going to cost you quite a bit. I just don't see that being a cheap deal, for Barcelona. So again, will they be able to do it? I don't know. Can they maybe work something out? I don't know. But for me, he'd be my second pick if I'm looking at, trying to replace, a player like, Lewandowski. Next up, we've got Victor Osimhen. Victor Osimhen. Listen, if you're talking about work rate, he outdoes every striker we're about to talk about. And I actually don't think it's even close. His work rate is ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. Like the way that this guy can just like hunt teams, will that be something that, potentially like Flick would want? And I know it sounds weird because of course you want players to, to be those kind of players, right? You want them to be able to work hard and stuff like that. But I'm just trying to think, is that maybe something more up their speed? Hold up play, I think he's got the best on this list that I'm even going to, players that we've spoken about and players that we're going to take a look at. Getting in behind, he can do that. He's got the pace. He's got the strength. The finishing, the array of finishes that this brother has is ridiculous. Would he maybe be I know it says price tag 75 million. Would he maybe be a cheaper option? I don't know how much he would actually cost from Galatasaray. I really don't know. His wages, I don't know. Like Barcelona already had this problem with wages. I do believe also they're going back to that 1-to-1, kind of rule. So I'm not 100% sure. But would he maybe be the best option for them? Because like I said, I think Julian Alvarez is like completely out of the picture. So maybe looking at someone like a Victor Osimhen might just be a bit more sense for them. I don't know. I really don't know. Finishing, aerial duels, holding onto the ball, key passes, headed attempts. It says does not like to dive into tackles, but I don't know about that one. But he is definitely a counter-attacking threat. Now, obviously, Barcelona play with that high line. Do you want someone like Osimhen in your attack? Would that kind of fit the mold of the Barcelona attack? And I'm not even gonna, like it says here, passing is weak. Yeah, I'm definitely not gonna say he's gonna be trying to do all of that, but I do think that he is someone. Barcelona, we know what they're like, and we know what they're about. Even under a Flick, they're still not a team who are going to have the big lads and stuff like that, right? That it is more about the technical, diminutive kind of players, right? That they've got in their team. Having that guy up front who is a bully, someone who's going to fight and will bleed for the club, 100%. If he gets moved to Barcelona, he's definitely bleeding for that club, 1,000,000%. He will put his all into every single thing. He won't score every single game. Got a good record. Of course he does. This season, 33 games, 22 goals. So he's definitely got a good record. But yeah, it's just whether he can fit. He's one I put third, just behind Joao Pedro. I think he's better than Joao Pedro, but for Barcelona's style, that's just what I'm trying to think of. But listen, I could be wrong. Maybe he should be this in second place, behind the Julian Alvarez. But again, let me know your thoughts. Next up, this one is one I pray they don't do. And the reason why is because Dusan Vlahovic is a player who, in my opinion, just hasn't been able to live up to, maybe it's my own expectations. Let me say that. Let me be fair. I just don't think he's lived up to my own expectations. I think he's been injured. He's had his injuries over the last couple of seasons. He's been kind of out of form. He's not really been favored. There has been a lot that goes behind Vlahovic. His contract is up at the end of this season. So in terms of the economic value, he would make sense for something that I have later, and I'll show you guys in a bit. He would make sense because as much as I don't think he's that good, or he's not as good as I thought he was going to be, to at least have that option, I don't think it's that bad. But I almost feel that if you get someone like him, it reminds me of when, I'm not going to say the Branthwaite era. Like, I'm not even going to say it's that kind of era because he's he's better than Branthwaite, right? But I just almost feel like you're almost going kind of back. Like, don't go for those kind of players. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't know how to explain it, and maybe someone watching this video will be able to understand. But just don't go for that for him. Like, he's the kind of player that was from that era of time when we just had like really, really rubbish players. And, the times when we was signing the Griezmanns and all these kind of players, like, yeah, Griezmann's sick in terms of in general, but not really a right fit, for a Barcelona and stuff like that. But yeah, he's not someone I really want. I'll be honest. He's not someone I would want Barcelona to sign unless they go and do the thing that I'm potentially thinking of, and I'll show you guys in a bit. The last striker is obviously Lautaro Martinez. This one I think is the most unrealistic one. For some weird reason, I just don't feel like he'd leave. I really don't. I just put him on him more for I've seen his name being bandied about. I like him as a player. I think he's a top striker. He's been one of the better strikers of this generation anyway, 28 years of age as well. So again, you're getting him, like he's in his prime, I guess, so to speak. Do I think he'd be any better at Barcelona? Maybe he might be able to, maybe, but I'm gonna say even if he's at this level, this is a really good level, I feel like, with Martinez. So I feel like you could still have him. Again, he is a player who can find the back of the net seriously. I do actually look at him as a bit of a leader. You know, I do think he is someone who would bleed for the badge. He's been at Inter Milan, you know, captain and all these kind of various different things. You know, he's finishing, key passes, through balls. He's a counter-attacking threat. Likes to play the ball off the ground, likes to tackle. You know, he will get involved. He will definitely get involved. And I do think he's a player who, in terms of the link-up, again, the kind of link-up I'm thinking of is the kind of link-up I'm thinking of. I don't know if Flick is also thinking of the same level of link-up. Do you get what I mean? Because the type of striker you had in Lewandowski is different to, say, for example, when you got Ferran Torres, you know what I mean, up front. Then they're two different type of players. I don't know which kind of style you're looking for, because you obviously can't get Lewandowski and you can't get like a Harry Kane as an example, because Kane would be the perfect, literally the perfect choice. Same way Bayern did it. It's the same way I feel like Barcelona, you know, should be doing it. But Kane is very unrealistic, right? I just don't see that happening, or him leaving Bayern Munich. So I look at Arturo Martinez, and he brings the experience, he brings the know-how, he brings the finishing, he brings the work rate when he wants to. So yeah, I think it'd be a very, very good signing. Again, price. A lot of these strikers that I'm putting on, the price is crazy. The prices are crazy for these strikers. They're really, really crazy. So I was thinking, because I feel like the prices are kind of crazy. What about, and just hear me out, what about Rafinha? I just want to let that sit for a second, just so that you understood what I'm trying to say, right? What about Rafinha? Now, just bear with me. Remember when I mentioned about Vlahovic? And I said, oh, I would only sign him if you were going to then do something else, which is this. Rafinha can play left, he can play middle, he can play on the right-hand side, as we know, right? Now, best work, obviously, probably being obviously last season, playing on that left-hand side with Lamine Yamal on that right-hand side. He is also very good through the middle. Now, when I say through the middle, obviously that's been more as a attacking midfielder, but he's also played in that false nine position as well. I feel if Barcelona were trying to save money, if they were trying to be a bit more economical about it, maybe wait for a player like a Harry Kane as an example, or maybe even a Julian Alvarez if they couldn't necessarily get that deal done. I feel you could just play Rafinha in that position as almost a false nine. It would then mean you would have to go out and sign a left winger 100%, and we could look at that at another time. But I feel that it would be easier to sign a left winger than it would be to try and find a striker, because you still got Ferran Torres. And I'm sorry, but I don't know people. I don't actually know how people rate a Ferran Torres. I think he's really, really good. I think for you to be an understudy to Lewandowski and at times usurp him in the lineup and look good, I feel like he's calm. Like, and if I'm being honest, if even you wanted to then say play Ferran Torres with Rafinha left hand side, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Again, I feel it's easier to go out there and find, and like I said, I haven't got one who just screams at me. Maybe Lewa, maybe, but there's not really ones that scream at me like in that kind of sense. Right? I'd have to do a bit more of a deep search, but I do still think that it will be easier to find that than trying to find this kind of perfect striker that I just don't feel that exist in the Barcelona context. I feel like Rafinha would actually be a really, really good option to play through that middle. He can link. We already know he got a link up with like, Lamine Yamal. He's got a link up with the midfielders. He can float. I just feel like that would be better served potentially. Now, there are going to be those games where that will frustrate me and it will frustrate other Barcelona fans because he's not a natural striker, which is something he's going to, if he was to play that position, we'd have to learn to develop, right? because he's not a natural striker, there's going to be moments when the ball goes into the box and he's not there. And people go, oh, and I know what's going to happen. Oh, we need a striker. But I get it. I fully understand. And I still feel like Ferran Torres will be calm to have in those kind of moments. I just think the fluidity that you would have with that front three, and I know people have referenced obviously the PSG front three and Barcelona are not the same. You don't have to necessarily be the same for it to still work. It doesn't need to necessarily work in the exact same way. You know what I mean? Like Mane, Firmino, Salah don't work the same way as a Kvaratskhelia, Dembele, Doué, Barcola. They don't work in the same kind of way. They all work a little bit differently. I think that this can also be another iteration of those kind of front three, but with a false nine. I really do. It would be more akin, I would say, to maybe PSG, obviously, because that's maybe with the style of players that they've got. You know, Kvaratskhelia being almost like the Lamine Yamal in terms of like dribbling ability and all these kind of things, and Rafinha being the Dembele, and then whoever they sign being kind of like the Doué, for example. Yes, it'll be more in that mold, but ultimately, I still think that it can work. And like I said, I really rate Ferran Torres, and maybe you might even just want to give the keys to him. If you generally can't find anybody, maybe you just say, let's give the keys to him. I think he's good enough to lead the line. I really do. I think he's so comfortable at Barcelona. And I think if you actually allowed for him to lead the line, I'm not saying he's going to get mad numbers. I really am not. If he did, it would actually surprise me. But I am saying that he would be, I feel like he'd have a lot more confidence about him, you know, and I feel like you might even see a different type of Ferran Torres, you know, kind of thing, if you just gave him the keys. But again, if you don't want to do that, I still think Rafinha is the player. But it all just depends. It really does. It depends on which kind of way Barcelona want to kind of go, how they want to go about everything. Is this the kind of style that they want to kind of play? Obviously, we know the high line, the kind of fast, kind of direct football, but also mixed within that is the kind of tiki-taka stuff and, you know, all of that. Again, that's just the Barcelona DNA. It's going to be interesting. It's really going to be very interesting to see which way Barcelona kind of go. But let me know your thoughts though, man. I'd really love to know what people think in terms of which way do you think Barcelona will go? Who do you think they will sign? Who do you think they should, you know, be signing? Because you're replacing one of the greatest strikers that we've seen, or I've seen in my generation. That's not an easy task. That's really, unless you already had someone coming through, it ain't an easy task. Maybe you might need to change and tweak the way that you play. Would that benefit Barcelona? Will that help them in other areas of the pitch in terms of signing other types of players? Who knows, man? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, peeps, and I'll catch you guys soon.